Hello and welcome to the Big Bang Podcast. I'm your co-host Larry Surma, president of the block, and I'm joined by Namik, the chief strategy officer of MegaETH.
Today we have one of the most interesting visionary builders in crypto, Paolo of Tether. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, thank you very much for having me. It's always a big pleasure to be hosted by the blog. I'm Paolo Ardoino. I'm the CEO of Tether, coming a long way. First, senior developer at Bitfinex, CTO at Bitfinex, CTO at Tether, and then CEO at Tether since 2023. I'm a technologist, I'm a nerd, a developer, coding for almost all my life. I think 32 years of coding now. And I like just to build stuff and do things that others don't do and maybe don't care about. But my entire vision is building technology that resists the wrath of God and that helps the humans in the worst case scenario, rather than just building something that can only survive in the best case scenario. That's kind of me in a nutshell.
I remember, Paolo, when you and I talked the first time, Bitfinex, obviously, well, Tether specifically, but Bitfinex as well, you guys were having some issues. You just issued Leo, and now we're here, a few years later, and you're probably one of the most profitable companies in the world. Just made $13 billion last year in profit for Tether, and, probably one of the most important companies in crypto and maybe even in the world when it comes to what you guys are trying to accomplish. So how did we get from that point where it was kind of one of the lower points of your journey and, you starting to become more public to now visiting Wall Street and Washington and, so much growth that you guys have seen? How has that been over the last 4 or 5 years?
Look, the entire crypto industry was and is still fairly new. I still believe that we are early. Tether created in 2014 this thing called stablecoin. And for 11 years, really, no one cared about that. And this year, suddenly, 2025, is named the year of stablecoins. The most powerful government in the world is creating a law that will regulate the technology that are created. So that's quite exciting. I mean, the road to get there has been a little bit bumpy. When you are in a new industry, when actually you create a new industry, it's not easy to get everything perfect. Also because you pissed off a lot of people, especially in the banking sector. So, sure, we had some roadblocks and bumps along the way, but when you have to fight with global traditional financial system, it's never easy. And I think that the biggest kudos goes to our team, because they never back down, they never stop believing in the mission of bringing $1 to hundreds of millions of people that have been left behind by that traditional banking system. And I mean, I've been personally going into United States for me. I mean, I'm 40. This is the first year for me that I decided to go into United States. Before, I never had the opportunity. And it's quite remarkable, because past administration was, it created this Operation Choke Point 2.0, and the OCC was very against stable coins, and the bank, and was directing banks to be against all the crypto companies. And then you had Senator Warren writing letters to all the auditors saying that they shouldn't touch crypto companies with a 10-foot pole. And now, just in a few months, we are seeing a huge positive change, at least in the respect of crypto. So, and I'm been going in the United States and talking to the Hill and to the administration to explain why stablecoins are very important, but not only for the United States. The way I try to describe it is that the United States are now trying to pass a law on stablecoins. That is great. Especially dollar-based stablecoins, because they are, really very important. But they're much more important outside the United States rather than inside the United States. The simple way I try to describe it is that you can imagine the United States having the financial rails 90% perfect and efficient. So the US has the best financial rails in the world and has the best efficiency of running in the world. So you could say that they are 90% complete. If you add stable coins on top of that, you can get to 95% perfection, because money will become even faster, more transparent, and then you can program money, right? That's great, but it's from 90 to 95%. So you get towards that 99.9% perfection. That is insanely better than anywhere else in the world. If you take Nigeria, you could say that efficiency of money is 10, 20%. So if you add stable coins on top of that, it gets to 50%. So stable coins have much bigger impact outside the United States rather than inside the United States. It's simple as that. It's pure math and logic to me. And what on the heel, I'm trying to explain that the regulation should also take a look at and provide proper safeguards for foreign issuers, like USDT is a foreign stablecoin to United States, but nevertheless is not less important. Actually, is more important also for the dollar hegemony and purchasing of US treasuries and the debt that we're going probably to talk about later.
Do you see a world in which the US ever issues their own stablecoin?
Yeah, look, I think that the US tried to, or like US lawmakers tried to ban the possibility of creating a CBDC. I think that the success of USDT shows that also privately issued stablecoins can be very, very helpful to the United States. In the end, basically, we are using most of the reserves to buy back the US debt, right? So, and it's all very transparent as a process. We keep our treasury bills in Cantor Fitzgerald, that is a primary dealer, is a US institution. So I think that they can have very strong and deep scrutiny in what we are doing, even if we are a private company.
It's really important for the US from the perspective that you just mentioned, but also, like you said, it's really beneficial for countries where maybe inflation is just really difficult. You tweeted something recently where there was a store that's now quoting prices in USDT. What are some examples that you've seen and that someone has shared with you where USDT is just helping people, to get access to normal stable money without being so reliant on the local government? And do you think that's just going to become more and more common in the future?
So, I mean, I wish I could say that USDT has become very successful because we were perfect and beautiful and great, but actually, it's the insuccess of entire economies that made the success of USDT. That's kind of like just a quick parenthesis, but it's kind of almost in a way saddening to think that the success of one of your product is directly proportional to the success of some emerging markets economies. From a human perspective, I think about this a lot. And but on the other side, I think that if there was no USDT, all the populations in these countries would be having a worse time. So if you think about Turkey, where the inflation in Turkey is 50%, like last year was 50% year over year, and the Turkish lira lost 80% of its value against the US dollar in the last few years. In Argentina, the Argentinian peso lost like 90+% of its value against the US dollar in the last few years, and Argentina defaulted multiple times. You can see why people are resorting to USDT. One of the crazy things, because when you run a company where the success of its main product happen organically, if you look at the chart of USDT growth, started growing dramatically from 2020 to 2022, and then 2023 and 4 were huge as well, and also this year. But until 2020, when USDT was only used in the crypto market, the usage was good but limited. The growth was, $4 to $6 billion up to early 2020, maybe 7, 8, but that was the cap. Then something happened, and again, we went back and look at what happened and trying to learn from the growth of USDT, because it was organic, so it was not dependent on something we did. So it's very important that you try to go in retrospect. So what we learned is that in the emerging markets in developing countries, there are a couple of things that are very common. One is the high use of smartphones, and so it, even if a country is poor, does not mean that necessarily is poorly equipped when it comes to smartphones and connectivity necessarily. And so on the other side, you have also lower average age for population. So what we learned, and in a way is very touching to me, from 2017 to 2020, in the emerging markets, is the young kids that learn crypto the fastest. And that is fairly normal, but all the young populations, the young generations are more prone to learn new things. But if in your country there are much more kids than other countries, these kids will become very important for basically the adoption of any new technology. But in 2020, with the advent of the pandemic, these kids were looking at their parents that were losing the jobs and they were trying to protect their families. These parents were trying to do what they could to protect their families in one of the worst moments of the recent history of humanity. And the parents were, even with the pandemic, they were still going out in the streets to buy cash dollars in the black market because they have been doing that for the past 20 years. But there was the pandemic, so it became even more dangerous. It was already super inefficient because these cash dollars were priced quite higher, but still was even more dangerous. So what happened is that the kids, for the first time, were the kids that were teaching to the parents that they could keep digital dollars on their smartphone without having to leave home. And that is what bootstrapped the usage of USDT in all the emerging markets, were kids teaching to their parents, kids learning from each other on Discord and then teaching to their parents how to use and hold a digital dollar without putting themselves in danger. So that is very humbling to me and is crazy. And we just learned it very recently because, again, we went back and learned about it.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on Tether Gold and the role it will play in these emerging markets as well, right? You highlighted the fact that, like, in a country like Turkey, which I have a fair share of experience in, the country's been riddled with hyperinflation. Um, Crypto has emerged as one really, strong alternative as a way of life. But a lot of people are asking questions around, okay, what if we were to revert back to, like, gold-backed financial systems? And I know you guys have Tether Gold as a product in that vertical. I'd love to hear some of the thought processes behind it and what you see as the future for a gold-backed stablecoin or a gold-backed product of any sort.
So I like to be very pragmatic and logic in everything that we build at Tether. In the scale of quality and perfection as a tool or as an asset, the lowest ranking is fiat currencies. Then US dollar is the best fiat currency. Then to me, on top of best of the US dollar, there is gold. And then on top of everything, there is Bitcoin, right? So to me, gold is the best tokenized asset in the world because for the last 5,000 years, humanity has been using gold as a currency. And gold cannot be inflated. Sure, you can say that if gold price goes to 100K per ounce, then you could try to go to Mars, or well, not to Mars, but on an asteroid and trying to mine gold from that asteroid and all that, right? It all depends from incentives. It's almost like game theory, but you could say that I think that the supply of gold will slowly and steadily increase with a small inflation over the next years, but will not double, triple in a matter of 1 year or 2 years or in a decade very easily. I mean, I think it's very, very improbable. So compared to other, to all the national currencies that are driven by decisions of humans. So the beauty of Bitcoin to me is that it's the only currency that is governed by math. Then gold and math is the only certainty in the universe. Then gold is the only currency that is governed by nature. And it's very hard to change nature, even for humans. And then all the rest is like going downhill from there. So we created Tether Gold because that was actually the best product that we could create outside of Bitcoin. And if you think about it, it's a product that could cannibalize part of our returns on USDT because we cannot make money on gold. But since someone will do it eventually, then it's best if we do it rather than let someone else doing it. Also, I know for a fact that the BRICS countries are kind of announced that they will issue a digital currency backed by gold. Look at the gold price from in the last 3 years. Like it went more than 2x. So the reason why it happened is because BRICS countries are going to launch a digital currency backed by gold, and they are building infrastructure in Africa, in Central South America, and other parts of Asia. So imagine BRICS countries with this new currency, they will have all the people working the infrastructures they built all around the world starting using this digital currency backed by gold. That is actually quite a cool currency in a certain sense, because it's not the yuan, it's not a Russian ruble, is backed by gold. So it's quite appealing, especially in the emerging markets, because the emerging markets have the highest attention for gold. So in a certain way, they decided, it's almost like the BRICS decided to compete with the US dollar, not with a basket of their own currencies. I think that they wanted at the beginning, but they realized that that was a bad idea. And now they will try to compete with a gold-backed currency. So it's best if Tether does it and provides an alternative to what the BRICS countries are going to issue, in parallel to keep leading on with USDT.
It's interesting. I would argue that you and Tether are the largest exporters of American soft power in the world. Now you're front running a world in which gold ends up being this shared asset in the BRICS markets. So I want to touch on the point I just made around the role of Tether in effectively fleshing out U.S. hegemony around the world, right? So I think we're in a very interesting geopolitical landscape. We've had a unprecedented 20 years of globalization, which was very much pushed by the US. But I think we can all agree that there is an end of an era happening, right? The US is becoming much more isolationist, for better or for worse. That's a strategic decision, while China is actually expanding. In many ways, I see Tether as one of the you're one of the largest holders of T-bills in the world, but I'm curious to hear how you see the role of Tether in these emerging markets as a way of like enforcing Western democracy and just like Western values.
Very good point. I think that the ultimate social network is money. Tether kind of created three things. Well, created a stable coin, and the effect is threefold. Tether is the company that was able to successfully, or at least in part successfully, bring financial inclusion to emerging markets. One of the things that annoys me the most is how the hell a small company like Tether was able to do more than NGOs and charities and other organizations that raise a lot of money to bring financial inclusion. I mean, if you are beaten by a couple of Italians, then you have a big problem, I believe. That has to be said. Is so financial inclusion to hundreds of millions of people and growing. Second is the fact that we have been expanding the US dollar hegemony, and I think that is clear. Tether has millions of physical touch points in the emerging markets. So these touch points vary from chains of bodegas in Central and South America with tens or hundreds of thousands of shops that sell phone credit and all that, and or like newspapers, newsstands. Like those are great ways to deal with people and interact with people, where you can also offer education, you can offer products. Any product can be offered through these chains of bodegas. Same in Africa, since there is less infrastructure to acquire. We are, Africa has this problem of low electricity penetration. So around 600 million people on 1.4 billion people, 600 million people have no electricity at home, but yet they have smartphones and few and different equipment. So what we are doing is building kiosks in Africa, in small villages with solar panels on top, and inside we have rechargeable batteries that we offer with a subscription of 3 USDT per month. And so we are teaching how to open Bitcoin and USDT wallets. Right now, we did a pilot in Africa, and we have already 500 of these kiosks. We have 500,000 people using these batteries, and more than 10 million battery, actually it's probably quite more than that now, but more than 10 million battery swaps. So these kiosks are becoming the center of commerce of the village. And with the remittances going to through through these kiosks and to the wallet installed through these kiosks. I mean, that's a way one of the many ways we work to expand, our distribution channel with the boots on the ground. And by end 2026, we plan to have 10,000 kiosks, and by end 2030, we plan to have 100,000 kiosks, so that we can pretty much power up 30 million households in Africa. And that, by the way, is a change that you will see from space, because like the center of Africa is very dark, but if we light it up, you can see it from space. But on top of that, we are building the biggest distribution network in the world. And I completely agree with you, Namik, that the world is going towards localization from a globalization, right? And if you remember, like in the past decade or so, if you were a company and had a physical distribution network, AVC would have told you, sell it and rent it back. And we did basically the opposite. So actually, we bought the distribution network, so that now, sorry to say, I mean, look at the S1 from Circle. We can, we don't have to pay for the distribution. So we built our own distribution.
And to double click on that, Paolo, what have you found on the ground in terms of people? What do they actually care about? Is it just access to money and they don't care about any of the rails? They just care about, hey, I can send this to one of my friends and pay him for something. What's kind of been the thought process and some of the takeaways that you have from these physical locations that you now have in Africa?
So they really don't care about blockchain. They just care about the fact that the fees are basically zero or almost zero. So we have recommended through our education different wallets, and we work with partners. And honestly, we're very agnostic. But we realize that the problem is that most of the wallets are trying to sell you something. Like they are trying to, oh, how nice those dollars are sitting, those USDT are sitting on your wallet unused. Why you are not going to use them to buy this thing or that dog coin, or like this or that, right? So so on a daily basis, they are almost like luring the users into spending their USDT, and they should keep the USDT as savings and then for their families. So we realize that Tether should build the best user experience for these markets. We are partnering with some companies. I mean, we have an ongoing relationship with Opera, with the MiniPay. But on the other side, we are looking at how Tether is building this platform, an open source SDK called Wallet Development Kit (WDK), that aims to allow anyone to build wallets very securely. Allows very simple, smooth user experiences where you can have a checking account for USDT and a savings account that can be Bitcoin, but also if you move some USDT into a savings account, can do like all the magic of moving them to a yield platform, a decentralized yield platform, right? So checking account, savings account, couple of things, very easy in the wallet, nothing too crazy with the no tokens, no other tokens, so on. Then anyone can configure to add more tokens, and I mean, it's extensible, right? So, but the way we will distribute, it's very simple, very vanilla, because I also trying to explain to the Bitcoiners, like Tether probably is the company that do most of the Bitcoin education around the world. And the problem is that we go there and we explain to everyone how Bitcoin works, and then they say, well, give me USD. And the reason is that not everyone is ready yet to make the extra step, right? So that's also what I tell to the Bitcoiners. You cannot pretend that all the people have in these markets have all the same amount of time that you have to go nerd and learn about things. It's very obnoxious of you to think about it. And so we have to work hard. We have to do education. You cannot be like an armchair Bitcoin maximalist. If you want to do it, do it yourself, and you will see. So first, you have to bring them on a wallet that takes good care of them, that gives them something that they're familiar with, and then you can bring them and explain to them new things. But it's a very, very long process, and I mean, Tether is investing a lot of money into it, and it's kind of unique, I think.
So telling us about physical distribution, your wallet ambitions as well. I would love to hear your thoughts on the blockchains. I would say the vast majority of Tether activity, and you know this better than I do, has historically been on Ethereum and Tron. We've seen the rise of stablecoin specific blockchains, many which are really excited to, be a place for USDT zero, right? So curious to hear your thoughts on blockchain distribution and how you see the role of Tether on chain.
That's a good point. So Tether never created its own blockchain. I think that is important to um, not cannibalize our partners. I think there should be an open market and there should be, fair competition across different blockchains. The problem is that there are blockchain like think about Ethereum. The transaction fees are very high, and I'd like to see more activity across chains that have, better user experience. They have lower fees and all that. So I came up with this theory that I want to experiment in one of our new wallets and products. Is that I want to create an algorithm where periodically users can have a set in the wallet where through USDT zero, the automatically part of the USDT will be bridged to the chain that has a mix between lower transaction fees and fast execution or fast confirmation. So in a way, is a way to create check and balances for chains that I don't want a chain to become very successful and then say, okay, my job is done, then I will enjoy it for the rest of my life. I think that we want to create an ecosystem that is fair to the people, and especially people that cannot afford $1 or $2 per transaction. So if built in the user experience, we have in the wallet, like at the application layer, we create a system to automatically swap and migrate funds to the chains that have the lowest fees, and we do a good job in creating these QR codes that can recognize multiple chains. We'll keep the blockchain developers more true to the ecosystem.
And so basically your vision is that Tether itself is going to be fully agnostic to the best chain possible, right? Like that users don't even really need to know where they're sending money. It's just going to work across multiple blockchains, and therefore, you're kind of picking it for them based on what you think is best for them from a transaction fee perspective. Is that right?
Yes, I think. I think that is not even us we are picking for them. Basically, we want a very open, transparent, public algorithm that every blockchain will see. And I don't have to be. I don't want to be the judge. I don't want to be accused of being biased. I think that as long as the algorithm is public and everyone can see it, everyone should be happy.
Route to the cheapest and fastest chain and call it a day.
That's it, right?
You raise a good point. Like whenever I talk to people that are not really interested in crypto, generally they are interested in stablecoins, so they don't care about the underlying infrastructure ever. They only care about like what's the cheapest. And the problem is that there's so many chains that are making the claims of like what's the cheapest, and then there are also chains that take advantage of people when maybe they're cheap for some time, but then they raise fees artificially to make money. And I think that doesn't do service to anyone because it just confuses everyone. You guys obviously have been insanely successful in terms of revenue, in terms of profits. I think last time I checked, you have a little less than 200 employees and making, last year you made $13 billion, I believe. And this Q1, I think you reported another 1 billion and $6 billion in excess reserves. But you guys have been investing a lot of those funds. You're not really letting it sit anywhere. You're making conscious investments, and a lot of the theme currently is really like decentralized infrastructure, permissionless networks, they're tokenless, as well as AI and other things. So I would love for you to talk about kind of when you guys, make so much money that you don't really even know what to do about it, right? Effectively, it's infinite amount of money. I have no idea how you guys even think about investing so much of these funds. What's the thesis behind some of these investments that you're making? And can you talk about, kind of what are the priorities of the people that are deciding where to put in the money?
Tether made around $20+ billion in the last 2-3 years. So less than, I would need to check last numbers, but less than 5% has been distributed to their shareholders. So the idea is that Tether should keep most of the money inside the investment arm of Tether. So as you said, are part of the excess reserve. So they're on top of the stable coin, and so that we are a bit more over collateralized. But the rest, around, let's say, 14 billion or more, now are invested through different things. We have great people and great portfolio managers. So we have different strategies and a different allocation. So a portion of it goes to, as we discussed, having this growth in our distribution network. So from kiosks in Central South America, sorry, in Africa to bodegas in Central South America, actually we have more than 50, 60 portfolio companies that are very diverse, and they are, doing different things to help us to expand the installed monetary base and our reach when it comes to USDT. Because I believe that if you have all this physical infrastructure, you don't sell only the dollar. I can sell, well, of course, Tether Gold, but I can distribute Tether Gold, but I can also distribute education. I can distribute phones. I can distribute apps. I can distribute whatever I want. That is basically one of the reasons why we are doing it, because we are expanding very quickly across different sectors. Second is investing a portion of our assets into more digital distribution networks like Rumble. Rumble has 70 million users in the Western world. One interesting note is that the Rumble creators were able to sell $850 million worth of gold between 2023 and 2024. So imagine what they could do with Rumble Wallet, with Bitcoin, and maybe Tether Gold. That is quite an opportunity, in my opinion. Then we have other investments that are much more long-term, but very stable. We have, for example, invested in Adecoagro, that is this landowner in Central South America. So it's the biggest landowner, the single landowner in South America, having land between Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. But also they are they have an agricultural production. So they are producing dairies, rice, and bioethanol, and similar. So first of all, I think that land is as scarce as Bitcoin and gold in a certain way. Well, Bitcoin is very, very scarce, but I think that land and gold are both very important. The issue with land is that it's not fungible, right? There are better and worse pieces of land, but it's still a very stable long-term asset. Is very scarce, and humanity will always need that, as humanity will always need agriculture. But on top of that, I know that Adecoagro is looking at USDT and stablecoins for commodity trading. I think that, just as a parenthesis, I think that commodity trading will be the biggest future leg for growth of the market cap of USDT. So we are talking to every single commodity trader, at least the biggest one, and they're all very interested to use USDT to trade oil or gold and other commodities across the world. So Adecoagro is looking at using stable coins for international trade, because it's so much more efficient. And efficiency is very important. And efficiency of money can add an easy 5 to 10% to your revenue. So, like, if you are a commodity trader and you are trying to execute an oil deal, until the wire hits the other side, the ship cannot start loading the oil barrels. So 1 day, 5 days, 1 week, or 10 days of a delay are a huge problem for these commodity trading firms. So that's basically what we are solving also with USDT, and I think that will just grow our market cap. So, but Adecoagro is basically a very beautiful company that is looking at these different opportunities. Then we have we have Bitcoin mining and energy investments. I believe that Tether has more than 100,000 Bitcoin in its across its group. And for us, since that is a huge investment, we think that we need to be part of the Bitcoin mining security team in a certain way in order to protect our own investment. I think that is clear that if you have $1 million and you have to decide where to put it, either in Bitcoin mining or in buying Bitcoin directly, you would always make more money buying Bitcoin directly. Don't always trust the miners that say, yeah, sure, give me your million and we'll make you more money. But In our case, I think given the exposure that we have to Bitcoin, it is important to be part of the security of the network. Realistically, by the end of this year, Tether will become the biggest Bitcoin miner out there. Then on top of that, we are investing in artificial intelligence. So we have the majority of this company called Norton Data, that I would say is one of the top 3 at least, if not top 2 independent AI infrastructure providers, having more than 24,000 GPUs, H100. Tether is also has its own AI development team. I came up with this crazy project called QVAC that is a peer-to-peer inference platform and federated learning platform and fine-tuning platform. The name is derived from this short novel called The Last Question from Isaac Asimov, written in 1956. The Last Question, just to spoiler it, is, well, it's 14 pages, so it's not that long. The last question is the most complex question that humanity will have ever to solve. And you can, hence, the hardest question you can ever ask to an artificial intelligence is, how may entropy be reversed? And so I started thinking, if we want to ask that question and get an answer, even in 1 billion years, that is the time frame that the answer is being given eventually, we need to have an AI that is part of the fabric of the universe itself. So you cannot have an AI platform that is sitting in a data center somewhere belonging to OpenAI. I came up with this theory. Eventually, people might agree or not with me, but someone asked me, "Oh, what is Tether?" The journalist asked me, "What to me is Tether?" Right? Because they said to me, Tether for us is the stablecoin company. And I replied, is the stable company. So is a company that aims to bring stability to communities. And stability, in my opinion, can be brought in only with 3 things. Stability of money, that is, stable coins for the emerging markets. You could say Bitcoin for the Western world, like, because you have already more stable money. So in order to have the best form of stability in the Western world, you would go with Bitcoin. For the emerging markets, a huge jump and leap ahead is already using stable coins. Second is stable communication. Means like stable communication is harder to understand, but I see stable communication as freedom of speech, i.e., everyone should be able to be in control of their own communication, being able to talk to all their peers and families and friends, because if they get censored, then the society cannot be stable or will not be stable for long. So if you have control as a person, as a family, as a society, as a community, as a city, as a country, as a region over your communication, then it's more probable that your society will remain stable, just because there is more equilibrium of power and access to information. And third, that I added recently, is actually stable intelligence. So if you have now, with the risk of centralized AI, already lack of proper lines of communications and high quality communications and good money, good stable money, already acted as a huge divisor between emerging markets and the Western world. But intelligence will be 1,000 times worse, right? So it's like, if AI will start becoming aggressively more and more important and start replacing jobs and so on, that will just increase the gap between populations. Imagine like Italy. Imagine if you have Italy using everyone in Italy and every single one in the public administration or private sector using artificial intelligence built from OpenAI or XAI. And then tomorrow there is, the US and Italy are not friends anymore. From one day to another, Italy will become dumber, just because, if the entire job market and entire population relies on AI, not provided or not accessible, or not controlled by Italy itself, then it's going to be a huge issue. So in order to have a stable society and a society that grows at the same pace and is where you have proper spread, like I think the mathematical term is equipotent, then you need to have stable intelligence. Fourth would be, in a certain way, stable energy or decentralized energy. Right. So what we are trying to do in Africa, I mean, some people told me in Africa, oh, you can just spin up a few nuclear reactors in Africa and solve their problem. But these people cannot point to where Africa is on the map, and so basically what we did is creating this decentralized energy or electricity that is built through kiosks, right? So if you have these four things, actually not three, I think you can get to stable society. So that is our overall, and sorry for the long rant, but that is our overall narrative on what we are trying to build at Tether, or we are going to die trying it.
A lot of the things that you mentioned are kind of like almost altruistic, right? Like it's difficult to make money from Keat. It's difficult to make money from even distribution, but even the AI that you mentioned, right? It's almost like giving back to society. Is that part of the ethos, for you and for Tether? And are shareholders just like so wealthy already that makes sense because like it's advancing society forward, or what's the thinking behind that?
I'm going to say that I don't want to be mistaken for effective altruist, because we all know how it went ugly before. So, but look, I think that in my opinion, first of all, isn't it enough? I mean, how much we build for ourselves, right? So I think that there is a limit. And also, we don't have to make money out of everything else. I mean, there are multiple ways to look at it, right? So on one side, if Kit was reaching 8 billion people or 8 billion users, I'm pretty sure that a way to make money out of it, we can figure it out even without breaking its full peer-to-peer stance. Staying with the peer-to-peer AI system, we are, as I mentioned, we are building WDK. That's a wallet development kit, and then WDK is open source as our peer-to-peer AI platform. I believe that in the future, every single AI agent will have a wallet and should be a self-custodial wallet. We are going to have 1 trillion agents in 15 years. Those agents cannot be all connected to PayPal servers or like to JP Morgan. Like, I don't think JP Morgan will open a bank account for an AI agent. So I think AI agents will use stablecoins and will use Bitcoin to transact. So if that is going to be true, if we put a self-custodial wallet in every AI agent, there is quite likelihood that these AI agents will pick USDT as one of their currencies, if not the primary currency, because is logically, since AI is supposed to be intelligent, so logically it's the most used currency, digital currency in the world in this moment, and hence, if 1 trillion AI agents will start using USDT, that is play nicely with our installed monetary base. Nevertheless, the system is fully peer-to-peer. People can decide to not use USDT, is fully open source, is fully programmable, so people cannot just opt out or just opt in into USDT. And this goes into my pitch. I did this pitch into Token 2049 this year. The keynote was once in a century company. That is a very bold title for a keynote. The point I was trying to make is that the reason why we're lucky at Tether is that we have three things. One is the technological capabilities and the ability to create tech that is very, very cool, like Hole Punch and similar on this AI platform. And also we build stable coins. And so then the second one is that we have the philosophy. We come from the Bitcoin world, and so we believe that freedom is the ultimate goal. I believe that I wouldn't say necessarily that I don't think Tether is a charity, but I think that the ultimate goal of Tether is to defend freedom, and we are part of this world, and so we want to use it in the best way to obtain freedom and to ensure that everyone has freedom. I don't want to be the only person to have freedom, so I think that the more people have freedom, the more society will be stable, so we'll play back to our own benefit. And then third, so we have tech, understanding, philosophy, and the third one is capital. So no VC will give us money to build stuff that we are not able to directly monetize. So usually VCs will give you money only if you can fully control the product. If you build peer-to-peer products, they are not necessarily like Kit and Hole Punch and all this stuff are not controllable. So I think that Tether is, for this reason, the once in a century company, because we are like in a very unique position. That, by the way, again, I say it again, we found ourselves in. So we're just trying to make the best out of it and not become evil. Or if we become evil, just we want to make sure that the technology we create is not is independent from us. That is why the peer-to-peer technology.
It's fascinating. This infinite money glitch has allowed you to stay private forever. You don't ever need to raise money from VCs. You don't need to go public and have an IPO. And you don't have to deal with like maximizing shareholder value. You can play much longer games, similar to what you've kind of described. A world in which you make, humanity better so that the AI agents use USDT is that's some very long-term thinking.
Yeah, but it's important, right? I don't, in our situation, the only thing we don't care about is short-term gains, right? So we are again in a very good position, so we can start playing. Like we invest in this company that is probably one among my preferred ones, called BlackRock Neurotech. We are going to change the name very very soon because can be confused with the BlackRock Finance, and they are doing brain-computer interfaces, and I think that they are much more advanced than Neuralink in this moment. They have more than 40 patients already. The next iteration of that brain chip is just insane. And what I want to do to compete and in a different way than anyone else is to build an open source brain operating system, so that I believe that in the future, in the next 15 to 30 years, this will become the next smartphone. And so maybe we are in time to build a technology that is open source, so that if I have to put in myself, then I'm not going to be controlled by, I'm a paranoid guy. So I just want to make sure that everyone is playing on an even playing field.
This is really insightful stuff, Paolo. We're running out of time, but I've one more question. You guys have also made a couple of like fun investments, like for example, the Juventus investment in the football club. Is that just something that the founders of Tether and executives just wanted to support because you guys are fans, or how do you think about that part of the investments that you guys are making?
Well, me and Giancarlo are fans of Juventus from forever. So it's a fun investment, but also at the same time, I think that in Italy, the football ecosystem is very outdated. Is almost like a political machine, and is uh, you know football should be for fun, but also should be football clubs. If you look at Chelsea, Real Madrid, and others, are companies and run as companies. It should not be a charity. It should be a well-run machine and company that create profits so that can improve itself, can buy better players and all that, and also have better communications and expand its fan base. I believe that Tether can help Juventus to expand its fan base immensely, given our reach and our digital and physical distribution network. And so we think that there is a lot of potential, and I think that a lot of the portfolio companies that we have in Tether can be helpful to Juventus. But we started with the heart, and then we're trying to put the brain inside.
Well, I think that's it for me, Paolo. Thank you so much for joining. Like I said, this was super insightful. We've learned a lot of new things, and I really think what you guys are trying to do with the permissionless technology and freedom is something to be applauded. So appreciate what you guys are doing for the ecosystem, and thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Deeply inspiring.
Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you, Evan, for having me.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.